About a month and a half ago, this guy took a fall. I had it on a strap, I was doing pictures, and then I just accidentally dropped it while I was trying to put it back in the watch box, and it hit my Seiko Turtle. Now, if you don't know what Seiko Turtle is, this is what it is. It's a beefy watch. So if you're gonna run into this thing, you better be strong enough to handle it. The Explorer was not, at least not the Crystal. The rest of it was perfectly fine, still ran, no problems. I only dropped it from like 2 feet up, so it wasn't like a huge drop, but it was enough obviously to shatter a piece or crack a piece of the crystal. That's to be expected. This crystal on the Explorer is raised, and so because it's proud, it's really easy to chip it. Typically, in my case, obviously I did more than just chip it, but either way, obviously I had to bring it in for a service, and this is kind of what that looked like. Now, obviously, if you haven't done a Rolex service before, the process is pretty straightforward. You go to a Rolex authorized dealer, you say, hey, my watch has a problem, I need to get it serviced. In my case, I said, hey, the crystal's broken. They gave me a quote right there. They said, this is what it's gonna be. I said, okay, fine. I handed them the watch. A month and a half later, I got a text, hey, your watch is ready to pick up. I went and got it. When I picked it up, it was in this little pouch, and I'll show you as I take it out of the pouch, but it was just in the pouch itself, which was kind of nice. When I first bought this, I bought it from a reseller. I bought it from Watchbox. And so I didn't have any of this. I just had like a nylon case that they sent their watch in. Perfect, honestly, as a travel pouch if I didn't care about the fact that it's very loud at, you know, hey, I have an expensive watch on me. But it would be a good travel pouch. Had a little divider in the middle that was holding, obviously, the bracelet. And then it came also with a service guarantee or service warranty with the serial number on there and the model number and all that good stuff. So I thought that that was a nice little touch just to have more paperwork about the watch. Now the watch, I did get the crystal swapped and I had it serviced. So they serviced the movement, they did a waterproof testing, and they also did a refinish. Before you scream, the refinishing aspect is twofold. One, I have a YouTube channel. It's helpful for me to talk through this process with you guys and what it looks like to refinish and how much metal actually goes away. You can also see the difference between what it looked like before and what it looks like now. We'll get into that here in a second. The other reason is because it's personal preference. There's a lot of voices that talk about do not refinish your watch. And I think it's helpful in any discussion to have counterpoints to that. And I can present myself as a counterpoint that I don't see very much problem. I've done a video on refinishing the titanium on my Tudor Pelagos. You can see that. Now, obviously, I did the refinishing there. It was not a professional job, but it looked pretty good. And if you're interested in that, the card's up above. But the issue here is that refinishing is mainly about value retention. You don't want to refinish your watch because eventually you'll sell it. And because you're going to sell it, you want to try and keep as much value as possible. For example, if you sell something unpolished, you've never polished it, you bought it brand new. You sell it to someone, it's got a lot of scratches on it, got a lot of issues, like minor things. They take it and get it polished, one polish. Now the normal person, even someone that's a watch expert in some regards, cannot tell the difference between a stock finish and one polish, especially if it's a light polish. Now if they go heavy or they mess it up, sure, that's different. But a light polish, typically you cannot tell the difference because it looks the same. You're talking about a very, very small amount of metal that gets shaved off because most of the time these scratches are really surface level. So either way, however you want to handle your watches is up to you. I prefer every so often to have them refinished if I know they're going to be a keeper and I don't have to worry about value retention and all that good stuff. Now I have refinished watches in the past. I'll continue to do it. This Explorer was a great experience. I had it for 3 years. I bought it back in 2019. So almost 4 years now, I guess. Wow, time flies. The watch itself was looking pretty, it had been through a lot. And yeah, you can say I love every scratch, but now that the scratches are gone, I don't miss the scratches. Like no part of me is going, man, I really wish I had that ding in the top of the bezel I've been staring at for the last 3 years. I like the fact that when I unboxed it, it felt like I bought a brand new Rolex. It felt like I had a new watch. And I know the sentiment behind it because of the design and the feel. And when I look at it, it feels like all those memories. You know, if I lost this, I'd buy another Explorer and it would, again, feel similar. Obviously it wouldn't be the same watch in my head, you know, but the feeling is not in the scratches. The feeling is in the watch itself and mainly in the design, the dial. So when I wear it, it feels like a brand new watch. I wore it yesterday and the way that this bezel was reflecting in the light, I haven't seen for years. It made me fall in love again with this design because You have moments when you're like, it's okay. You know, I liked it a lot more before. And if it reignites that feeling, I think it's a good thing. It's a net gain if you want to repolish it. Now, obviously on the refinishing aspect, they asked me, they said, do you want to? I said, yes. They said, okay, well, it's included anyway. So, you know, up to you. I said, yes, I want to refinish it. And I think most people do. Most normal people do. Even watch enthusiasts, while we're told not to, I think some of us, maybe most of us, I don't know, do that. The differentiator there is vintage pieces or pieces you know you're going to sell, and you're trying to retain the value. But for me, I try to, at least in my mind, think I'm going to keep all of them. And so I just behave as though I will keep them. And this is how I would behave. You can also see, obviously, on the differences between the old one and the new one, that the watch refinished very well. One of the things that happens with refinishing is the more you do it, you lose more metal. So this crown down here on this bracelet typically will start to get recessed in because people will polish it out, essentially, to the point where you can't see it as well, or it's not as well raised or defined. And they did a great job. It looks just as raised as it did when I first purchased it. So very light polish there on the bracelet, but they got all of the major stuff out. The bezel was something that bothered me. I wanted to have the same kind of mirror finish that was originally on the bezel. And so I love the fact that this thing is reflective again, and I really notice it. The lugs look about the same as they did before. They didn't over polish it and file them down. They still have a nice sharp profile here to the top of the lug that I can feel. It's very tactile with my hand. I can feel the sharpness on the bottom side of the case as well. All things I typically check with a watch if I'm worried about over polishing, but if it's a good polishing job, I am not good enough to be able to tell the difference between a light polish a few times and unpolished. I'm just not. That's not my specialty. But the watch turned out great, did a great job on the finishing. Now they did change the crystal out with a Rolex crystal so that it's got that engraving. I'm gonna see if I can't get a good macro shot where you can see the engraving. It's tough to see. They did get a Rolex crystal, it's got the engraving in there, got the crown, and that's something that people would also be worried about when they take it to a third party. They may not have a Rolex crystal to put in there, but obviously if you go to a Rolex authorized service center, they can obviously put a Rolex crystal in there. Now, typically when it's a service crystal, it's supposed to get swapped out, or it does, or at least the lore is that it gets swapped out with a crystal that has an S, sideways S, inside the crown. Now this one doesn't have that, it's just the crown, which I always thought meant that it's the original crystal, but now makes me wonder, maybe that's not the case. Maybe typically because they have more regular crystals, they just use the regular crystals the majority of the time, unless it goes to Rolex in Switzerland, in which case they swap it out. But something to note when you're looking at buying a watch, you may not have the original crystal, well, potentially. Again, I don't care. I don't think you should care if it's the original crystal. Just, you know, enjoy the watch. Just to walk through the service experience in terms of cost, that I have detailed here. So I took it to my Rolex authorized dealer here in the area. That's Reese Nichols. I'm in Indianapolis. And they charged me $950. That's a service and a crystal swap, as well as obviously the refinish as part of it. So it's a complete service. On the little service paperwork, it showed me the pressure tests and all that good stuff. I'll show you also here on the time grapher, you can see how well it's keeping time. So the watch came out great. You know, I have absolutely no complaints whatsoever. The pricing of it, again, you know, things vary. If you go to a third party servicer or watchmaker that knows what he's doing and can handle Rolex, even if he's not licensed by Rolex, typically they'll do a great job and you might find them more affordable. Probably because they have less overhead. You know, you're paying the watchmaker, right? Whereas if you're going to a jewelry store, they have the building, they have all the employees, then you have the watchmaker that you are compensating. And they obviously have to make money and to handle all of those other expenses. So it makes sense that it would be a little bit more. $950 didn't completely shock me. I wanted it to be closer to $700, but obviously I have the crystal in there as well. If the crystal's $150, then you're pretty close to $950 at that point. So that's just something to note. If you're interested in Rolex in general or watches, just know that when you get them serviced, you are going to pay a decent amount to get them serviced, depending on what the watch is. So that's my counterpoint on refinishing. That's my experience on refinishing. What do you guys think? Have you guys had something serviced or refinished? Any bad experiences, any good experiences? Obviously, leave them down below. Help everyone else out. This is one man's opinion. This is a whole community. So Help each other out down in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.